My video for February the 21st, 2018 is entitled Show Me Van Dyke Legends. Missouri in the U.S. is known as the Show Me State, as their license plates and a Google search indicate. Recently, a friend asked me if I was related to Leroy Van Dyke. I had to admit that I did not even know who he was. So he sent me a video with Leroy playing his old hit song, The Auctioneer. Walk On By was another of his hit songs. He was born on October 4th, 1929 in Sedalia, Missouri. Of course, Dick Van Dyke also hailed from the Show Me State. Jerry Van Dyke, Dick's younger brother, died in Hot Springs, Arkansas last month at 86. It seems both Leroy and Dick are still alive, with Dick being 93 years old and living in Malibu, California. Leroy still performs. I'm not sure what Dick does now. Anyway, I knew my hometown, Midland Park, New Jersey, was a Dutch enclave. And of course, New York City was called New Amsterdam at one time. Frankly, I had no idea that Missouri was also home of Dutch settlers too. It may not mean anything to most of you, but apparently some Van Dykes live a long time. It made me wonder how long I will survive in this challenging world. Yes, it may not seem like much of a thing, but, and I would have never, if my friend hadn't asked me if I was related to Leroy, I would have never done any of this investigation and Google searches and stuff to find out more about Dick. I didn't know Dick Van Dyke was still alive. I figured he'd be long gone by now, but he's still alive. And as I said, his brother just died in actually January the 5th this year, 2018. He was in Hot Springs, Arkansas, which of course is where one of my friends lives, not in Hot Springs, but in Arkansas. One of my closer friends. Anyway, folks, I, again, am doing a lot of reflection, a lot of pondering on my role in this world. I'll never be as famous as Dick Van Dyke, and he's the most famous of them all. Again, I didn't even know who Leroy Van Dyke was, but he still played an active role and still was performing relatively recently, within the last year or so. Anyway, he does occasional performances, not all the time, but occasional performances in that area, and he has been on various radio programs and whatnot. So there are some Van Dyke legends that dot my landscape in the past, although, again, I wasn't even related to Van Dykes that were in the same town that I grew up in, including the chief of police and my friend Duke, or Roger Van Dyke. And there were two other spellings of the name, D-Y-C-K and D-Y-K. Again, those are common Dutch names. So there's a lot of Van Dykes around the world, I'm sure, in the United States and probably in other places too. And perhaps even some of them are the elite, and that's the problem with the world. The people that gain elite status are often not high in the field of morality and integrity. And that challenges me, because I want to see a world that integrity is a value, where honesty is highly esteemed, where respect for all life, but especially human life, is a given. But it's not that way in a world where political elites and economic elites, and I'm not saying any of the Van Dykes that I named are political and money elites. I don't believe that. They just happen to become successful in their particular fields. But there are elites that have the desire to rule the world. And I wonder, I seriously wonder if some of these are even human. Some suggest that they're not. They're a reptilian faction that merely takes on a human appearance in 3 dimensions. And some say the 3rd and 4th dimensions are lower dimensions, and they will never, it's sort of a testing ground to see who's ready to rise to the higher dimensions. In other words, it's the 3D and 4D are written off, and some promote that as absolute fact and spiritual reality. That means, from my perspective, that I've wasted my life. I've lived, at this point, 71 years plus, trying to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth in a 3D, 4D reality. And I don't care if we become higher dimensional beings within the reality, but a reality that is actually inhabited by people with a decent intention, a loving intention. This may seem far-fetched to you. It may seem unimportant to many of you, but it's really, really important to me. Because, as I've said so many times, since I was a little boy, I have had the sense that I was on this earth for a purpose. And in the past year or two, that purpose has been shattered and my beliefs have been challenged like never before. And I want to live to be in my 80s and 90s and even older if the world can change. But if the world doesn't go through positive changes, I would just as soon leave as soon as possible. And yet I do everything in my power to stay as healthy as possible. I try to eat as good a diet as I can. I get exercise regularly. I'm not as active as I'd like to be, but that's because I don't have the opportunity to host my meetings anymore like I once did, although I still attend various spiritual and metaphysical type meetings on a regular basis. But I don't have the roles that I used to have of being able to direct some of these meetings as one of the leaders. And that is a challenge for me, I admit. I mean, I want to be able, I feel like I have a message that needs to get out there. And I'd like to be able to do it, that there's more connection to local people, to people where I live. And that's what I lack a great deal of. I still, as I keep on saying, I still have the role that I play with my grandchildren, and I appreciate being able to do that. I still have a reasonably decent relationship with my son. I go to hear him play from time to time. And in any case, folks, I would like to put out there to whatever the creator is, that something needs to be done here on this planet. We need to move into a real golden age, not this dark age. And some say this dark age, we're not even near the end of it yet. Is that true? I don't know. A lot of things are just speculation, people's ideas. And people's ideas are very contradictory, in case you haven't noticed. So what's it going to take? What's it going to take? I want to be shown the way to make life meaningful for me and for my brothers and sisters that have good intentions. I want that. So show me. I want to be another Van Dyke legend. Thanks for listening, and namaste.